The judge looked at me over her reading glasses, and I knew Brad had finally played his card. "Mrs. Patterson, your ex-husband alleges you've been concealing marital assets. He claims you've hidden substantial funds that should be part of the division." I smiled, just smiled. Brad's lawyer, Jennifer Matthews, sleek suit, sharper angles, leaned forward like she'd already won. Brad himself sat there with that expression I'd come to recognize during our marriage. The smug certainty of someone who thinks they're the smartest person in any room. He thought he'd caught me, thought he'd finally proven I was the scheming, gold-digging wife he'd been painting me as for months. He was right about one thing. I had been hiding assets, just not the ones he thought. "Your Honor," my lawyer Patricia Morrison said calmly, "we'd be happy to address these allegations. In fact, we have documentation prepared." I watched Brad's smile widen. He thought documentation meant I was scrambling to cover my tracks. He'd probably spent the last week fantasizing about this moment, imagining me stammering excuses, while the judge ordered forensic accountants to tear through my life. What he didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything for 18 months. It started the night I found the receipt. Brad had been working late more often. Not unusual. He was a senior architect at Hastings and Moore, and they were always behind on something. But that Tuesday in March 2023, I was transferring clothes from the washer to the dryer when a crumpled paper fell from his pants pocket. Lucia's, table for two, 247.36. We hadn't been to Lucia's. I'd been in Sacramento that week visiting my mother after her hip surgery. I stood there holding wet clothes, water dripping onto the tile, and felt something click into place. Not heartbreak, I'd process that later. Just clarity. The kind that comes when scattered pieces suddenly form a recognizable pattern. I dried the receipt, photographed it, put it back in his pocket. Then I called my cousin Janet. Janet had gone through her own divorce 3 years earlier. Her ex-husband, a surgeon, had tried to hide assets in offshore accounts and real estate purchases under his brother's name. Janet had hired a forensic accountant and a lawyer who specialized in high-asset divorces. She'd walked away with 60% of everything. "Document everything," she told me over coffee the next morning. "Every receipt, every bank statement, every text message. Open your own accounts. And for God's sake, Sarah, talk to Patricia Morrison before you do anything else." I met Patricia Morrison on a Thursday afternoon in April. Her office overlooked the bay, floor-to-ceiling windows showing sailboats drifting across blue water. She was 50-something, silver hair cut sharp as her questions. "Are you sure?" she asked after I'd explained about the receipt, about Brad's late nights, about the way he'd started password protecting his phone. "Not yet," I said. "But I want to be prepared if I'm right." Patricia nodded. "Smart. Here's what we're going to do." She outlined a strategy that felt like building a wall brick by brick. Open a separate bank account, not to hide assets, but to establish financial independence. Document every penny I contributed to our household. Photograph valuable items we owned and track their provenance. Keep a journal of Brad's absences, his mood swings, any unusual financial activity. "If this goes where I think it's going," Patricia said, "you'll need to prove what you brought into the marriage, what you contributed during it, and what you're entitled to coming out of it. California is a community property state, but proving separate property can make a significant difference." I started that same week. The thing about being a museum curator is that you learn to be methodical. My job at the Oakland History Museum involved cataloging collections, tracking provenance, authenticating artifacts. Every item needed documentation, where it came from, who owned it, how it arrived in our possession. You learn to think in terms of evidence and verification. I applied those same skills to my marriage. Every morning after Brad left for work, I spent 30 minutes going through our files. I photographed bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts. I created a spreadsheet tracking our assets. The house we'd bought in 2019, $800,000 to $47,000. Down payment $160,400, $120,000 from my inheritance when Dad passed, $40,400 from our joint savings. Brad's car, a leased BMW 5 Series, $689 month. My car, a paid-off Honda Accord I'd owned since before we met. His 401k, started before our marriage but grown substantially during it. My smaller retirement account, our joint savings checking, the investment account Brad had opened in 2020. I also started documenting something else. Brad's increasingly suspicious behavior. April 12, 2023. Brad home at 11:47 p.m. Said he was at the office finishing the Henderson project presentation. I called his office at 9:30 p.m. No answer. April 19, 2023. Found second phone in his gym bag, locked. When asked, he said it was a work phone. Hastings and Moore doesn't issue work phones. Confirmed with Rachel in HR, college friend. May 3rd, 2023. $1,200 charge on joint credit card to jewelry store. Nothing given to me. Anniversary not for 3 months. By June, I had a file folder 2 inches thick. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals Brad couldn't explain. Credit card charges to restaurants, hotels, flower shops. All on days he'd claimed to be working late or traveling for business. Photographs of the second phone, receipts I'd retrieved from his car, screenshots of our bank accounts showing the pattern of suspicious spending, and then I found the texts. Brad had gotten careless. Or maybe arrogant. One Sunday morning in late June, he was in the shower and his regular phone, the one I was allowed to know about, lit up on the nightstand. Amber. Can't wait for Napa next weekend, baby. Should I pack the blue dress you like? I picked up the phone. No passcode needed. He'd disabled it months ago after I'd asked why he suddenly needed privacy. Some reverse psychology. Make it seem like he had nothing to hide. I scrolled through their conversation. 6 months of messages, hotel reservations, restaurant plans, photos I won't describe, and something else. Conversations about money. About Brad's plans to handle our divorce. About how he was going to make sure that bitch doesn't get anything she doesn't deserve. Brad. Don't worry, babe. I've been moving money around. She's too stupid to notice. By the time we file, half our assets will be somewhere she can't touch. Amber. You're so smart, baby. She has no idea who she's dealing with. I took screenshots of everything. 37 messages. Then, I put the phone back exactly where it had been. The shower was still running. I sat on the edge of our bed. The bed I'd helped pick out. The bed I'd paid for with my inheritance money, and felt that same strange clarity from the night of the receipt. Not sadness, not rage, just a cold, focused determination to make sure Brad was exactly as wrong as he thought he was right. Patricia's office. Monday morning, 9 a.m. I handed her a USB drive containing every screenshot, every photograph, every document I'd collected over the past 3 months. She pulled them up on her computer, silent as she scrolled through the evidence. Finally, she looked at me. Sarah, this is exactly what we need, but I need you to understand something. Brad mentioned moving money around. We need to find out where he's putting it. Already on it, I said. I handed her another document, a report from a forensic accountant Janet had recommended. Cost me $3,500 worth every penny. The accountant, Michael Roberts, had found everything. Brad had opened accounts at 3 different banks, none of which appeared on our joint tax returns. He'd transferred $67,000 from our investment account in increments small enough that he thought I wouldn't notice. $3,000 here, $5,000 there. He'd taken out a loan against his 401k for $45,000 and deposited it into one of the secret accounts. He'd even opened a credit card in his name only and racked up $23,000 in charges. Fancy dinners with Amber, hotel stays in Napa and Carmel, jewelry that had definitely never appeared on my finger. He's been planning this for at least 8 months, Patricia said. Maybe longer. Since before I found the receipt. Since before you found the receipt. She leaned back in her chair. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to file first. We're going to request full financial disclosure. We're going to subpoena his bank records, credit card statements, everything. And when he tries to claim he doesn't have hidden accounts, we're going to bury him in evidence. What about the money he's already moved? Patricia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. California law is very clear about hiding assets during marriage. The court can award you 100% of any asset the other party attempted to conceal. Not half. All of it. Perfect. I filed for divorce on July 15, 2023. Had the papers served to Brad at his office during a meeting with senior partners. Janet's idea. She said her ex had found it deeply humiliating to be served in front of colleagues. I wasn't trying to humiliate Brad, but I wasn't trying not to either. His first call came 19 minutes later. What the fuck, Sarah? You had me served at work? Are you insane? I want a divorce, Brad. I think that's pretty clear from the legal documents. We can work this out. Whatever you think is happening, I think you've been cheating on me with someone named Amber for at least 6 months. I think you've been hiding money in separate accounts. I think you took out a loan against your 401k without telling me. Should I go on? Silence. How? I'm a curator, Brad. I'm very good at research and documentation. See you in court. I hung up, turned off my phone, poured a glass of wine, and sat on my back patio watching the sunset. Life was about to get interesting. Brad's strategy became clear within a week. He hired Jennifer Matthews, known for aggressive tactics in high-profile divorces. They filed a response claiming I had been the one hiding assets, said I'd siphoned money from our joint accounts into separate accounts, claimed I'd been planning the divorce for years and systematically stealing from our marriage. It was almost impressive how completely wrong they were. Almost. The preliminary hearing was set for September. In the meantime, we were both required to submit financial disclosures, complete accounting of all assets, debts, income, and expenses. I submitted mine within 2 weeks. Bank statements for every account I'd ever opened, tax returns going back 7 years, documentation of my inheritance and how it had been spent, proof of my salary and retirement contributions. Clean, organized, thorough. Brad's disclosure was due August 30th. He requested an extension, then another. Finally submitted on September 15th, 3 days before our hearing. Patricia called me after reviewing his documents. Sarah, he's claiming you have a secret account at Wells Fargo with $85,000 in it. I don't have a secret account at Wells Fargo. I know. But he's going to claim you do. He's going to try to make you look like you've been hiding money. I thought about this. Can he prove this account exists? That's the thing. He's provided what looks like bank statements. But something's off about them. The formatting is wrong. The account numbers don't match Wells Fargo's system. Michael is looking at them now. 30 minutes later, Patricia called back. Sarah, Brad forged these documents. Michael is certain. He's going to testify that these are fake bank statements. So Brad is claiming I have hidden assets, and his proof is forged documents showing accounts that don't exist. That's exactly what's happening. I started laughing. Couldn't help it. Brad was so convinced I was stupid, so certain I'd been sitting at home oblivious while he played his games, that he'd actually created fake evidence of crimes I hadn't committed, while I had real evidence of crimes he had. Patricia, I said, I think it's time to show our cards. The hearing was in courtroom 4C, Judge Elizabeth Warren presiding. Brad sat across from me in a navy suit that probably cost $2,000. Jennifer Matthews beside him radiating expensive confidence. Amber was in the gallery. I recognized her from the photos. Blonde, 26, wearing tight jeans and a low-cut top. She kept shooting me looks like she'd already won something. Judge Warren reviewed Brad's allegations first. Hidden accounts, concealed assets, fraudulent transfers. Mrs. Patterson, the judge said, these are serious accusations. How do you respond? Patricia stood. Your Honor, my client categorically denies these allegations. The bank statements Mr. Patterson has provided are forgeries. We have an expert witness prepared to testify to that fact. Furthermore, we have evidence that Mr. Patterson has been the one hiding assets throughout this marriage. Jennifer Matthews rose. Your Honor, this is absurd. My client has been completely transparent in his financial disclosures. Mrs. Patterson is simply trying to deflect from her own misconduct. Then you won't mind if we review the evidence, Patricia said. She handed a folder to the bailiff, who passed it to Judge Warren. I watched Brad's face as the judge opened the folder. Watched the color drain from his cheeks as she flipped through page after page. Bank statements from his secret accounts, screenshots of his texts with Amber, especially the ones about hiding money, credit card statements showing $23,000 in charges he'd failed to disclose, the forensic accountant's report detailing every transfer, every hidden account, every lie. Judge Warren looked up. Mr. Patterson, you testified in your financial disclosure that you have no accounts other than those held jointly with your wife or in your name at Chase Bank. That's correct. Your Honor. Then how do you explain these accounts at Bank of America, Citibank, and Charles Schwab, with a combined total of approximately $135,000? Jennifer Matthews looked at Brad. Brad looked at the floor. And these text messages, Mr. Patterson. I've been moving money around. She's too stupid to notice. Does that sound familiar? Your Honor, I can explain. I'm sure you can. I'm also sure I don't particularly want to hear it. Judge Warren closed the folder. Mr. Patterson, you've not only hidden assets from your wife, you've also submitted fraudulent documents to this court, alleging she committed the very crimes you've actually committed. That's perjury. I'm imposing sanctions against you personally and referring this matter to the district attorney for possible criminal charges. Brad's lawyer stood. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Under California Family Code Section 1101, when one spouse has deliberately misappropriated community property, the court may award the innocent spouse 100% of the asset in question. I am awarding Mrs. Patterson the full amount of all undisclosed accounts, $135,000, plus her 50% share of all properly disclosed marital assets. I am also awarding her attorney's fees and costs. The courtroom was silent. Furthermore, Judge Warren continued, I'm granting Mrs. Patterson's request for exclusive use of the marital residence pending final disposition of this case. Mr. Patterson, you have 72 hours to remove your personal belongings. Is there anything else, Ms. Morrison? Patricia smiled. No, Your Honor. That will be sufficient. I didn't hear from Brad for 3 weeks after the hearing. Jennifer Matthews withdrew as his counsel. Apparently, she didn't appreciate being made to look foolish with forged evidence. He hired someone cheaper, a young associate named Tom Bradley, who seemed perpetually nervous. The final divorce hearing was scheduled for December. In the meantime, I had the house to myself. I changed the locks that first weekend, painted the bedroom a soft gray. I'd always wanted to repaint, but Brad liked the beige. Rearranged furniture, donated Brad's belongings that he'd failed to collect to Goodwill after the 72-hour window closed. Put fresh flowers on the kitchen counter every Monday. My friend Emma came over one evening in October. We sat on the patio with wine, watching the neighbor's cat hunt moths in the garden. You seem good, Emma said. Like, really good. I am good. I thought you'd be devastated. You were married for 6 years. I considered this. I think I did my grieving while I was still married. Once I found that receipt, once I saw who Brad really was, I was done. The rest was just paperwork. Still, you handled this like some kind of divorce ninja. I laughed. I just documented everything and hired a good lawyer. Most people don't think to do that. They get emotional, they lash out, they make mistakes. Emma paused. Brad really thought he was smarter than you. He did. That must feel good. Watching him realize he wasn't. It did feel good. I won't pretend otherwise. Brad tried one more trick before the final hearing. In late November, he filed a motion claiming I had stolen family heirlooms from the house. Items that belonged to his grandmother. Worth approximately $50,000. Jewelry, paintings, antique furniture. Patricia called me immediately. Please tell me you didn't take anything from that house that belonged to his family. I didn't. Everything I took was either mine before the marriage or purchased by me during it. I have receipts for everything. Can you prove the items he's claiming are even real? Better than that. I can prove they never existed. I'd thought of this possibility months ago. After all, if Brad was willing to forge bank statements, why not forge an inventory of family heirlooms? So I'd done something that felt slightly insane at the time, but now seemed prescient. I'd photographed every single item in our house. Every room, every closet, every drawer. Thousands of photos, all time-stamped and geotagged. I'd also contacted Brad's mother, Laura Patterson, and I had always gotten along. She'd never particularly liked Brad, told me once that he was too much like his father, who'd left her for a younger woman when Brad was 12. When I called her in September, told her about the divorce and Brad's behavior, she'd been sympathetic. That boy, she'd said with a sigh, he never learned. Laura, I need to ask you something. Brad is claiming I stole family heirlooms. Jewelry and paintings from your mother. Did she leave anything like that to Brad? My mother? She died in 2003. She had costume jewelry and some nice frames from Target. Nothing worth more than sentimental value. Brad never got anything from her except a few photo albums. Would you be willing to testify to that? Absolutely. The final hearing was anticlimactic. Brad's motion about the heirlooms was dismissed after Patricia presented the photographs of our house and Laura Patterson's sworn statement. Judge Warren was notably less patient than she'd been in September. Mr. Patterson, this is the second time you've brought fraudulent claims before this court. I'm doubling the sanctions against you. If you attempt any further frivolous motions, I will hold you in contempt. The divorce was finalized on December 18th, 2024. I got the house. All of it. Outright. The $135,000 from Brad's hidden accounts. Half of his retirement and investment accounts. My own retirement and separate property. He was ordered to pay me $8,500 in spousal support for 3 years. The accountant calculated I'd contributed significantly more to the household than Brad during our marriage, since my inheritance had paid the down payment, and I'd covered most of the utilities and household expenses. Brad got his leased BMW and whatever was left in his checking account after paying attorney's fees and court sanctions. And Amber. He got Amber. I saw them together 6 months later, at the grocery store in Rockridge. June 2025. A Saturday morning. I was buying flowers and wine for a dinner party that evening. They were in the frozen food aisle. Brad looked older. Not just 6 months older, years older. Tired. His clothes were rumpled, his hair needed cutting. They were arguing about something, voices low but sharp. Amber looked different too. The tight clothes were gone, replaced by yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup. She looked exhausted. They were living together now, I knew. In a one-bedroom apartment in Oakland. Brad's salary went primarily to spousal support, court sanctions, and paying off the credit card debt he'd racked up. Not much left over for the lifestyle he'd promised Amber. I didn't hide, didn't try to avoid them. Just walked past with my cart, gave a small nod. Brad's eyes met mine for a second. Then he looked away. The dinner party that night was lovely. Emma and her husband, my friend Rachel from work, Janet and her new boyfriend. We sat on my patio in my house, drinking wine and eating pasta I'd made from scratch. Laughing about nothing important. To Sarah, Janet said at one point, raising her glass. Who played the long game and won? To documentation, I said, smiling. We drank to that. Later, after everyone had left and I was cleaning up, loading the dishwasher in my quiet kitchen, I thought about Brad's face in the grocery store. That exhausted, diminished look. Part of me almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered his texts. She's too stupid to notice. Remembered him sitting in that courtroom, so confident in his lies. Remembered Amber in the gallery, smug in her tight jeans, certain she'd won some prize. They'd both thought I was foolish, naive, someone to be managed and manipulated. I loaded the last plate into the dishwasher and wiped down the counters. Through the window I could see my garden, roses I'd planted in February, tomatoes growing in neat rows, herbs in terracotta pots. All of it thriving. I'd been hiding assets, just like Brad told the judge. I'd been hiding competence, intelligence, strategic thinking. I'd been hiding the ability to plan 18 months ahead and execute perfectly. The best part? I was still hiding assets even now. My career had flourished since the divorce. I'd been promoted to senior curator, started consulting on the side, making an extra $3,000 a month. Invested carefully, watched my accounts grow. Built a life that was entirely mine, earned by me, protected by me. Brad had been looking for hidden bank accounts. He'd never thought to look for hidden strength. I turned off the kitchen lights and walked upstairs to my bedroom. The gray walls looked perfect in the moonlight. Tomorrow I'd go to the farmer's market, maybe take a yoga class, dinner with friends in the evening. My life was full of small, perfect moments that belonged only to me. The doorbell rang. I paused at the top of the stairs. It was nearly 11 p.m. I walked back down, checked the doorbell camera. Brad, standing on my porch, alone. I didn't open the door. Just spoke through the ring system. "What do you want, Brad?" His voice crackled through the speaker. "Sarah, can we talk, please?" "We have nothing to talk about. I made mistakes. I know that. But maybe we could..." "No, Sarah." "Brad, you stood in court and accused me of crimes you committed. You forged documents. You tried to steal from me and then claimed I stole from you. We are never talking again. Go home." "I don't have a home." His voice cracked. "Amber left me. Took everything that wasn't nailed down. I'm staying at a motel. I just thought, you thought wrong. Good night, Brad." I switched off the speaker, watched on the camera as he stood there for another minute, shoulders slumped. Then he walked back to his car. Not the BMW anymore, I noticed. Some beaten-up Honda Civic. He sat in the driver's seat for a long moment before starting the engine and pulling away. I went upstairs to bed. The next morning, I woke to sunshine streaming through the gray bedroom, made coffee, took it out to the patio. My roses were blooming, deep red, the color of wine and victory. My phone buzzed. Text from Janet. "Janet, coffee this morning? Want to hear about your dinner party?" Me. "Sounds perfect. 10 a.m. at our usual spot?" Janet. "See you there. Bring stories." I had stories. So many stories. But the best one wasn't about revenge or victory or watching Brad's life fall apart. The best story was simpler than that. I was happy. Genuinely, peacefully happy, in a way I hadn't been for years. Maybe hadn't ever been. Not really. I'd spent 18 months documenting a marriage that was already over, planning for a future I'd have to build alone, preparing for battles I didn't want to fight. And yes, I'd won those battles. Won them completely, systematically, because I'd understood something Brad never had. Preparation defeats arrogance every single time. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom or the bank accounts or the house that was finally completely mine. The real victory was this. I'd stopped being afraid. Of divorce. Of being alone. Of starting over. Brad had thought he was teaching me a lesson about trust and loyalty. Instead, he'd taught me about my own resilience, my own strength. I finished my coffee and went inside to get ready. Life was full of small victories now, small moments of peace. The museum had a new collection arriving Monday. Emma wanted to plan a wine-tasting trip to Napa. Neither of us mentioned the irony. My garden needed tending. My life needed living. Brad had been right about one thing, back in that courtroom. I had been hiding assets. I'd been hiding myself. The capable, intelligent, strategic version of myself that I'd let fade during 6 years of marriage to someone who needed me to be smaller, so he could feel bigger. I wasn't hiding anymore. I grabbed my keys and headed out. The morning was beautiful, all blue sky and possibilities. In a few hours, I'd meet Janet, tell her about Brad showing up at my door. We'd laugh about it, shake our heads at the audacity of men who don't realize what they've lost until it's far too late. But first, I had errands. A life to live. A future to build. Brick by brick. Document by document. Moment by moment. And not a single asset hidden anywhere Brad could find it.